I'm Eric Barden.
I'm Amy Barden.
And welcome to another episode of Bombardened. Today, we are talking with Deaunte Damper.
Yep,
Tell us more.
One of my favorite people. So Deaunte, as far as I can tell, has like 12 jobs. I knew him first because of his work with Focal Washington. He also works for Converge Media, I believe. So I need to find out what his actual day job is and how many jobs he has. But he's just one of the most beautiful souls I have ever come across ever. I mean, he really is. Every room he walks into is better. I put on a bright shirt for him because he is.
Right?
He is.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. I'm really interested in the CVI stuff and, gun violence. I have maybe a little bit of a cynical thought about those things from my law enforcement perspective. But, and I'm also concerned that, that gun violence and, reduction and police don't always sort of communicate like they should.
But I can tell you if there's debate, I'm going to side with him. So just prepare yourself. Yeah.
I have no doubt.
All right.
Let's go. Let's do it. So we're really excited to get going here and talking to Deaunte Damper about his life, his work, how he helps people, and so we're really excited.
I like how he says helps people because you have so many jobs. It's like,
I can't. How are you gonna? I was trying to think of a succinct way, but there's too many things.
He's helping the humans.
What do you do?
What do I do?
What do you do? Deaunte?
Everything.
Yeah,
that's the why. Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I would just say is just a community organizer. Yeah. Community builder.
Yeah.
I
like builder,
like, I wish that I could say, it'd be great to say that I'm doing one thing, but there's just so many things that I love to be a part of the community compass with. So yes. Or I could say community compass, honey.
Oh, I like that.
I like to be, there's so many different, I love to assist community members, lift up marginalized communities, right?
Okay.
We know what's been happening out here.
Yeah.
The county has changed.
Yeah.
The state has changed a lot post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And I think I found myself always watching so many community members feel silent.
Yeah.
From our trans community members to our incarcerated folks.
I think the first time I heard you speak may have been at the Hometown Heroes the year before last. And I knew who you were. I follow Converge. And it's funny because once we met, I see you every day.
Right.
You are everywhere.
Like once you got sworn in, I seen you like every week after that.
Yeah. But it's always the good people, right? I learned quickly like who is actually in the space of solutions showing up. And it was really interesting, too, to realize the folks I never see, right? Outside of a formal environment or something fancy.
We won't name you.
Yeah.
It might be fun.
I'll get some messages after. Yeah.
Call them out.
Tell me, I do not know your backstory at all. Are you from Washington?
I am from Seattle, Washington. So I grew up here.
What neighborhood? Like the city proper?
Oh, let me be clear. Southern area of Seattle.
Okay.
Rainier Beach.
Yeah.
I stayed with my grandmother, and while living in Seattle, in Rainier Beach, I always had culture there. There was culture. I had support because I was Black, and there was Black community there, and everyone knew my mama and my mama's mama, and went to church, and there was just this big community there.
So it's like the village, right?
Yeah. But I'm gonna get teased because I'm gay, right? And there would be a piece of me that didn't fit, right?
Yeah.
So then I was told to go to Capitol Hill. So then I go to Capitol Hill, and there's queer representation, but no culture.
Oh, interesting.
So I really grew up in this space of like, where do I fit?
Yeah. And when you say no culture, you mean Black culture?
Black culture.
Yeah, because there's culture.
There's culture, but growing up queer and even still in Capitol Hill, like we say Black Lives Matter, but where is the representation at? Are we lifting up those folks? But I grew up really kind of just feeling like I didn't fit anywhere.
Yeah.
So I moved to Florida, started going to school, didn't last long.
Really?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Because it was time to party.
Oh, yeah.
I was impacted by Hurricane Ivan right when I moved there.
Oh, wow.
And I just started partying.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out my life.
And had you done that stuff as a kid? Or were you pretty...
I mean, I was a partier, but I was like, wow, I'm an adult. I get to make my own decisions. Yeah. Like, life is best to be a party.
Yeah.
But party turned into prison.
Oh. See, I didn't know that. Yeah. Let's talk about that. So this is why we don't have an agenda for this man.
Right. Well, some people call it stealing. I called it professionally borrowing. Yeah. I would go to a store, borrow it from another store, and return it to another store and get the money. And I would do that a lot. So much where Florida just said, you know what, let's lock him up.
Yeah. So and was that because you were using? Is that, I mean...
I was using. Yeah. So at that time, I was just using cocaine.
So you were trying to fuel that habit? Or were you just like an adrenaline junkie?
At first, it was like, ooh, like, this is a great way. Like, minimum wage down there is $7.50.
Yeah.
I was doing call center work. I was making $9 an hour. Yeah. Well, if I did this twice... 2-3 times, that's my work week, right?
Yeah.
So did that. But when I went to prison, it was like, okay, stealing.
So were you getting arrested? Were you going to jails? Or
I was going to jail.
Yeah.
It was like repeat offender, probably 5-6 times.
Yeah.
I'll show you my mugshots after this.
Yeah, I am intrigued, honestly. I didn't know any. See, he's had even more careers than I knew.
He's more diverse than even you imagine.
So you probably know we're debating all the time, like the role of jail and bookings. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to be careful the way I talk about this because it's not that I think we shouldn't interrupt the cycle. What frustrates me is that short stint and people go right back to the same behavior, right? There's no reason to not. And so what's your perspective on that? Do you know what I mean? Well, yeah.
Well, break it down a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts.
So again, I have the professional line of sight into this. Okay, arrest, book, you're out in 16 hours, arrest the same person again tomorrow. And then the folks that I know who really change their lives, who sustain recovery, more often than not, it seems to be in the prison system because they're long enough and there's actually more resources if you get lucky, right? And so I just don't understand the utility of that booking. I understand we want to reduce the harm to community, but for the individual, are we using that opportunity to actually help?
Well, in my case, prison did change me in the space, but I was still in because I wasn't making enough money. There wasn't enough resources for me to make the money, right? If there was a program where I could make more than $11 an hour and not be in survival mode.
Yeah. And this is just your young brain too, right?
Yeah, it's my young brain, absolutely.
So I don't want to leave that jail issue quite yet because it's not that there's no utility to breaking cycles. A lot of times if folks are using drugs or having they're in mental crisis and they're just sort of devolving in front of our very eyes. Sometimes when they're committing crimes and we arrest that person, we put them into jail. That is a sort of a pause, a timeout, a break. It gives people an opportunity to eat, to sleep, to get hydrated, to not be using that drug. Maybe get some stability. And so there is real value to that. And I'm not talking about in your case necessarily. I'm just saying in general, because I don't want to leave that, the 16 hours in jail thing. I think you and I both agree that we wish that there were more resources and that we would utilize, I would like to utilize the accountability structure of law enforcement, justice system, and jails to incentivize people into treatment, incentivize people into
just jump in. You're gonna have to talk over him.
I love to hear your perspective on this, but to provide folks, I think we always think there's diversion or jail, and in my mind, it should be those things should be working together because oftentimes, sort of that incentive. You look at the King County drug courts, for example, that sort of accountability structure, accountability coupled with treatment, wraparound services, health, stability, job training. To me, that's how we change lives and how we get folks back on track. So anyway, I didn't want to just leave that.
But I
jails are worthless.
Well, this is my thing when it comes to that, right? It's like, when we talk about treatment, when we talk about drug court, the real reality of it is, who the hell gets access to that?
Yeah.
Not my people.
Yeah.
And I really I think that Seattle, especially after the Blake decision too, is just like, why are we stopping investing into programs like DESC, co-lead?
Yeah.
Because I feel like once people start to get housed, I've watched this. Once they get housed and they're in this communal space to get the small necessity of the resources that they need, so they're not in survival mode.
Yeah.
I just watched this like laser focus, especially after like during 2019 of like the narrative of community folks in survival mode. That does not mean that people aren't committing heinous crimes, but it's like the scare tactic of like how these people are. Yeah. When in reality is if we took instead of taking $16 million and investing all in law enforcement, we take half of that and make sure that we're investing in more programs like LEAD, et cetera.
Yeah. We completely agree on the importance of LEAD and co-lead and those efforts. And I'm not at all suggesting that arresting somebody and throwing them in jail is the answer. Quite the opposite. The point I'm trying to make is that we ought to provide resources to people so that they are able to change their own lives.
Yeah.
That's my point.
If your intention, again, you just heard me at that forum. That's what I keep stressing is do not conflate accountability and punishment. And I keep saying we have to think about crime and crisis in the same terms. We do. It is all of these behaviors are self-destructive. I think today most, if not all, do relate either to mental health issue or to addiction, right? Or the impacts of being unhoused. Actually that correlates with both. And so I'm curious about, we got to go back to prison.
Yeah, I know. We don't want to lose this story. We don't want to derail.
We pause for quick debate.
Sorry.
And then back to the story.
Quick debate.
So you wind up in prison, and you said you grew up, you're like a church kid, right?
Yeah, I grew up a church kid. And, there are very many people that I feel like I had a great life.
Yeah.
There was a life that my family wanted for me, and there's a life that I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
And the life that I wanted for myself ended me up in prison, so I came back home.
Yeah.
And
how long were you in prison?
I was in 17 out of 24 months.
No kidding.
I was supposed to do 24. I did 17.
And tell me about that environment. This is in Florida?
You want the real story?
I do.
Okay.
Yes. Always.
So it's a road prison, Camp 8. I went out there. They make you shave your face. And trust me, I look like a beakless duck with no mustache, no beard. And they do, how there's like basically as opposed to Parks and Rec, how they go out and clean up the parks. Yeah. That's what they make the road prisoners go do.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to see something very dangerous, me with a weed whacker, okay? I did that one day, and they were like, oh, hell no. Put this brother in the laundry room and don't let him out. So I was in the laundry room like the majority of the time during my stay. It was like a portable, probably about as big as a space.
And so were you you were an active user when you went into prison?
Yeah, active user.
So did you have support in detox? Or
I had more drugs in prison than I probably, I'm out now. So it's, statute of limitations is far gone. But honestly, I had more access to narcotics in prison than I did on the outside.
Yeah. And is that, does everybody know that?
I mean, I think.
In the system?
I think. They know. I mean, most prisons
He calls me Pollyanna all the time. I am still routinely shocked by everything. Mm-mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is down south, so honey, it's far more.
That's real. Yeah. So were you scared? I mean, how did you navigate the environment?
I think I was scared, but I did need a reset.
Yeah.
I can say I seen the same judge 7 times in a 4-year period.
Yeah.
And at that time, I needed a reset.
How old were you?
I had to be 26, 27.
So also then you're starting to have, like my kids say, the fully baked brain.
Yeah.
They're like, because I don't think we knew that. It's funny how many significant life decisions are made prior to 25, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I have a life.
Yeah.
I actually really need to start kind of showing up and doing responsible stuff. So I moved back home.
Did you get support in prison? Like, did you take classes? Did you have
no classes?
Okay, it really
Florida
was just
prison.
like
they just want you to work.
Yeah,
you're gonna do what they say.
Yeah.
And there was no pay. That was just the road prison. You were out there working.
Yeah, that
Monday
was worse
through
than
Friday.
minimum wage. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then you came home, and how did your family receive you?
My family received me great. I think it was me kind of trying to find my footing, and they wanted to make sure that I got the support that I needed. So I moved in with my father and started working at GameWorks downtown.
Oh, yeah?
And fun fact, I used to be a stand-up comedian, so I started doing stand-up comedy.
That's going to derail this whole thing. We're going to have to do round two.
So I'm just giving you that. But I'll just quick to speed it up. I did stand-up comedy for a minute. Yeah. I was a funny MFer. And I was going to get ready to start hosting my own shows in Columbia City, but I went down south to go visit my mother for her birthday. And when I went down there, I found out that I was HIV positive.
Oh,
and it just totally changed my life. Yeah. And when I say that, most people will say it was crippling, but HIV saved my life. Because at that moment, then it was, now I have to be responsible for myself. Yeah. And I've watched so many of my community members be displaced or be afraid to take their medication and like live in silence with the disease. So I said, F this. Yeah. I'm going to move to Philadelphia, get all the tools that I need to really just be a beacon of hope for myself. Yeah. I never looked at myself as someone that could be able to not just to take care of myself, but to show up for myself. Yeah. So in Philadelphia, I started showing up for myself. Yeah. But I picked up a habit while I was there.
Okay.
You ready for it?
I you should make me guess. I'll be like, violin.
No. I picked up methamphetamine.
Oh, no.
I picked up methamphetamine and through injection use. And
So what was going on in your head? Because you're trying to change your life. I would think you'd have a real fear of drugs then,
You would, but I think that what it was, I was in a horrible relationship and I'm going to be candid here, right? Although I was getting comfortable and learning more about myself, intimacy was very hard for me. Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting real here, right? Yeah. And that bothered that person because I didn't know what to do in this new body. I'm just now taking these pills. I'm figuring out who I am. And there was a fight that broke out and he choked me up against the wall and he said, nobody will want to be with you if you're not going to be intimate. And he spit in my face. It was a tussle. I'm not going to say who won or lost, but we know. But what he did to me was far worse than him putting his hands on me. What he said made me feel so small. Yeah. Yep. And I thought back to myself, and I tried it once before. Yeah. But I knew that I could be that way by using methamphetamine, right? Yeah. Yep. So it was like crutch, it became to mask away from that. It became my it did become a crutch, and it damn near destroyed me. How like I was just building myself up to this great point. Yeah. And I got to 2017 December. I was renting a house from someone, and they were trying to kick me out because they thought I was using drugs. And of course, I'm in denial. Yeah. Shaved my head and looked in the mirror and said, home. Yeah. And I got a plane ticket and came back home.
Yeah. And then how does your family receive you?
Oh, they were like, what the hell is wrong with this? When I came in, it was like, what is this? Yeah. We are not familiar with what's happening in this space right now because Black people don't think people don't think Black people do meth.
Yeah, I don't think that. No, I mean, legitimately, I do think, that's a white drug. Yeah. I do think that, yeah. Yeah, interesting. So did you get treatment? I mean, what?
I did not. I came back home. I started working at a space called Pocan.
Oh, yeah,
doing some nonprofit work, and I was doing great. That is up until that pandemic happened. Yeah. And I started doing more work, more jobs.
Do you know what Pocan is?
Oh, yeah. Pocan, the People of Color Against AIDS Network. They've been around for almost 40 years. Yeah. And it's not just the work that they do around HIV. They've done groundbreaking work with harm reduction, groundbreaking work in housing. Really was a beacon of hope for community members learning more about HIV. They actually were the first to come out with a magazine,
Is that right?
a comic book.
Yeah.
So kids can have a better understanding of what HIV was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how some stigma just settles in and is so hard to eradicate, because I remember, I was probably in like 4th, 5th grade, when I learned about AIDS. And it was just, it almost felt like hysteria to me, that people were just so scared.
Yeah.
And that was probably Magic Johnson, that era.
Magic Johnson, Ryan White at that time.
Yeah.
I think he was like 12 years old.
Yeah. But it's funny. I remember as a young person, I was like, but if you only have sex with your husband, then how, I was really naive. I was like, this is solvable. It's no problem, So, yeah. Again, Pollyanna.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There it is. Okay, so then pandemic. So it's fascinating to me. You just put down meth, because I don't know a lot of people with that story. You are connected to purpose, it sounds like.
Is that what you did? Did you just stop using on your own?
I just stopped using. I stopped. But that didn't mean that I wasn't using other things.
Yeah, okay.
But I stopped meth. And what I mean by other things, like just drinking and just still partying and still kind of just masking it, I guess.
Do you think it was self-medication looking back?
Absolutely.
It's just coping,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that what happened during that pandemic, it was like, okay, you're sitting with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I had a good job.
Yeah.
I was working for the government.
Yeah.
It was a great job, but that isolation just got to me.
Yeah.
And I went through this 2-year period from 2020 to 2022 where I'd be clean for a minute and then I would go back to using.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I looked in the mirror and I just, again, and I couldn't see myself.
Yeah.
And even just thinking about that moment, and I'm so grateful for Lisa Dugard and Malika, because I remember, you got to think about it. I'm just now starting my show with Converge. I'm the vice president of the Therapy Fund Foundation that helps people get access to care for mental health. I'm the chair of Black Lives Matter. I was former chair of Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County. There were so many different things that were riding in the space. And Malika asked me one day, she said, well, why don't you go to treatment? And I said, girl, if I go to treatment, I will lose everything.
Yeah.
I will lose everything. And she said, well, you have me. You'll still have your space. We're going to meet you where you are. And no matter what happens, I will always be here with you. And then it became this thing where the other organizations, I just told them like, hey, this is what I've been dealing with. And I'm still with those organizations to this day, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I get a little teary-eyed when I think about it because, I can remember how empty I felt at that time. And coming out of treatment, it almost felt like now I'm doing the work. I wish I could say the work was getting done during that time. And I felt like, yes, it was. Yeah. But honestly, the treatment wasn't, recovery wasn't me going to treatment.
Yeah.
It was being able to finally be that little boy who was able to be himself everywhere and know where he could fit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there's really a different presence in the work now.
It's a full circle moment.
Yeah. So, I had no idea your backstory whatsoever. And we were recently at one of the community safety forums, and he followed me out after I did my, 5 minutes of Amy Speak. I was answering it was actually a really good question. The question was basically like, okay, if we shouldn't arrest people when they're overdosing, what do we do? What do we do instead? And so I was talking about that, about prevention and intervention and diversion. And again, coercion, I think, is appropriate under some circumstances, but we have got to be more thoughtful about that, about why we're intervening and what the objective is and how we design the system. And Deaunte followed me out and started telling me about recovery from meth. And I was, you saw me, I was like,
it was so
what?
funny because I'm talking to the lady and I'm just going like this, and Amy just goes,
What?
Like, she's like looking at it, like, wait. How did I miss this story?
Yeah, I just can't. I mean, like so many of my friends in recovery, I can't imagine that version of you. I can't. I will only ever know you as you are in recovery.
Trust me, honey. It's both sides were great people, I must say. But I think, Amy, I have to say this to you. Working with everything that happened during the Blake decision while working at Vocal, I really just lost hope in leadership. And I was really just pissed and kind of ready to kind of give it all up in a way. But when you got sworn in that day, in your speech, it was not, you weren't speaking for your position. You were speaking to all of us. And I want you to really understand how you made so many of us folks that are doing this work feel. I mean, and it was you gave us so much hope. I remember even talking to Malika and even talking to the people that I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with Kevin and I grew up with Leonard, and like we all do different work in community, but they were happy to be in that space because you give us hope.
Thank you.
And I really want to thank you for that, because things happen all around in every position, county, city, statewide, but there are few and far between. There aren't very many people that really give people a place to land and are really authentically a part of the authentic compass where people feel like they belong. Yeah. That's the thing that we're missing here in our community, is belonging. And I just want to thank you for that, because I remember that speech and what it sparked, not just in myself, but everybody in that damn room.
Thank you. You're Deaunte.
And don't worry, I don't want to marry her. I'm gay. But I'm just letting you know.
You're the first person to really choke me up on the show. I did not see that coming. I thank you for that. I mean, am deeply uncomfortable in the space that I'm in generally, because I come from your world. I come from community. And philosophically, I do not believe bureaucracy solves these problems. I don't. I think that we rebuild the village. And again, we shine light on you and on Kevin and on the people doing the real work in community. And I think it's the hardest questions to answer are like, what ails us? And I'm like, we're catastrophically disconnected, and when we don't know what community-driven design is, we don't. When I think about Rainier Beach, I remember being in Seattle in those years, and I was working on MLK South and spending most of my time in Columbia City and Rainier Beach and somewhat in the CD. And I remember seeing the gains in Rainier Beach, right? Because we had this great initiative. Money was flowing into community. And again, the community leaders were advancing the change, especially for kids. And you could see the improvements, 2011, 12, 13, 14. It was heartbreaking to come back, and to see how badly hit, especially our Black communities were. And one of the first questions I had was like, okay, did you want defund? What were the reforms that we wanted here? Because I wasn't here. And I knew to just show up and ask the question. And I felt like the whole year I was just holding a basket for people to put their anger in. First time I met Harriet Walden, she was standing in chambers. I was like, I love this woman. She stood up, after a bunch of white folks, amplifying what the Black community needed. And she just stood up and said, I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
Awesome, right? But I find that we are not amplifying the right voices, and we're not really listening. It's pretty disingenuous a lot of the time.
A lot of folks, it's just important just to not be selfish.
Yeah.
I think there's some.
It's so simple, right?
To me, and I mean, there's some beacons of hope out there. Won't say any names, but I will, maybe on a special. But that aren't leading with the heart. I feel like that like everything can't. The same solution can't happen for every area in. This space, right? Yeah. When you think about even soap and soda, even though I understand why you want to do it, it didn't work before.
Yeah, I know. I know.
It didn't work before, and each area needs their need is different.
Yeah.
Cal Anderson is different.
Yeah, no, that's exactly
than downtown,
right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Eric and I had talked about what do they call the community service officers? Is that what it is? The CSOs, the school resource officers.
SROs.
SROs. That's what I'm thinking of. But even that, it was interesting because I was in all these. I mean, I've definitely been in at least 200 community meetings at this point. You know, poor Eric has been to more than he ever wanted to be in. But it was interesting because
and you're at every one.
You at least can see Deaunte when you come out. But it was interesting because there are totally different sentiments around this, right? And different schools need different things. And we have so much trouble with that, having a range of resources that can be applied differently to different communities per their desire or request. And so I don't know how to change that, but keep talking about it.
Yeah. We got other topics to get into, but I do want to just note that, you know, she is a force of nature. And I appreciate you shining light on that and articulating the impact that Amy has had on you and your friends and the people that are working in this space, because I get to see her every day, and I don't ever forget she's a force of nature either. So that's great. We want to talk. We want to get into sort of your vision, your philosophies on where we should be going, where we should be investing our efforts in terms of lifting up communities.
I find that people just don't understand who the best interventionists are. And I love Kevin Loyal. I love that guy. That is the best intervention strategy I have seen in that area. And again, he's just going about his business, right? But he's told us the funniest stories about, like, give me that gun. We're not doing it this way. And so I find it's those, the informal structure is what's most effective, right? When you have people who are sort of baked into the community who are looking out for the kids. And I think we keep trying to set up these very formal teams and like, these are interventionists. And I don't know if it works as well as when you've got a coach or, this is somebody that's in my life daily who's looking out for me.
Yeah, well, I think that there are very many folks that are violence interrupters in their own space.
Yeah.
And I do see an investment in programs such as itself, even in the program that Leonard does with Buffalo Soldiers.
Buffalo Soldiers is the greatest thing. Every time I invite him to something, he goes, "Can I bring a horse?"
Yeah.
I really was worried he was going to roll up to City Hall on a horse.
I'm quite sure it's parked over there off of Jackson, right?
Yeah. But no, that is incredible work. Again, just making sure that kids have access, right, to all different things. And I don't think we're talking about that enough either. That, we've talked to so many people where, to me, I'm like, I think this kid was bored, maybe angry and bored, right? And so that is where it starts. And if conversely, I know kids who are at super high risk of all sorts of things, but had a sport, right, or had an instrument or had a passion that sort of kept them focused on what could be in the future. And I don't think that we invest enough. I think you have to be pretty well off these days to do music or to do sports.
Yeah.
Even baseball, which used to be pretty accessible.
Well, I think that one of the things that I was doing previous to the position that I'm in now is I went to the different high schools and talked to them about what public safety looked like to them. And it was all different.
Oh, yeah?
Some said SROs, some said no SROs.
Yeah.
Some said more investments in community programs for music.
Yeah.
There are no music programs here.
Yeah.
Some said, what I heard from a lot of the inner city schools is like more inclusive, more intersectionality training because there's a lot of queer folks that are going here and they're scared because of what narrative is being pushed out in community. I think it's all. When I think about community violence, when I think about gun violence, it's like we look at gun violence, but it's like, no, we need to look at all the systems of harm.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. What do you think is fueling? I mean, I didn't realize how many, of the shooters were kids, right? Until I really got, actually the meeting that we met in is probably the first time I was really presented that data.
Y'all met while working?
Yeah, we
met at CSTAT.
It was a crime statistics meeting. Yeah. I will say he ran a good meeting.
Okay, well can you please send me a calendar invite? Maybe my husband is in that meeting too.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things.
Stand-up routine now.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things where, from a law enforcement perspective, certainly, gun violence reduction, CVI, all important work. But then there's also the reality is we've got carloads of 15, 16, 17-year-olds driving around the city looking to shoot somebody, right?
Yeah.
They're going out with a specific intent. And that goes on summer after summer after summer in Seattle. And so that's that law enforcement necessity to intervene, try to get those kids off the street. It's certainly important to try to provide those kids resources once there's a law enforcement intervention. But it's also just important to get them off the street because they're going to drive around and shoot people. Mm-hmm. And we've got to stop them from doing that. So, I really think that sort of this holistic approach where certainly, violence interruption is important. Certainly, building strong foundations, music programs, sport programs, Buffalo Soldiers, whatever it might be.
Well, again, champ boxing is so cool because you could see these kids, there's some energy there, right? And just to redirect it in a productive way, to be able to say, okay, you want to fight? This is an appropriate expression of that.
I do want to say that, like with the CVI workers, right? One of the misconceptions that people have is like, you have to understand, law enforcement is our first responders first, right? And there is no way a CVI worker is before that. We lift up our law enforcement. A lot of our CVI programs are working very closely with some of our law enforcement to as they're navigating some of these impacts that you, right?
Some aren't.
Some aren't.
Yeah,
I would say the majority of our organizations have been doing that because we see the need, and gun violence has been down. With youth violence is still on that margin. But I think as we continue to work together,
I think that's the key. 100% is having multiple approaches here. Prevention is important, but there's. We go into it's not appropriate here, but what are we doing with these kids once we do interrupt and find them with a gun? What are we doing? Mm-hmm. That could stand to be improved.
that would be hard.
Currently, you have to have 5 convictions before a young person sees any significant time, and that's just we've got to do better than that. But that's for a different podcast.
Yeah, I think so. I'm curious if you could like wave a wand and change something, resources or structurally or systemically as it relates to violence, right? And just I do not like vitriol. I just reject it. I don't think, it was funny, sometimes I'm invited in these forums and they're on mental health, but the whole framing is everything's terrible and everyone's evil. And I'm like, that in and of itself is terrible for mental health, right? That is not how we should be talking. There are other ways to debate and to dissent and to drive progress. And so I'm just curious your perspective. I'm always like, we need less fear and we need more love.
Yeah. If I could wave a magic wand, I think...
Big question, I know.
If I could wave a magic wand, I think what I would do is stop big business from coming into this space and make sure that we invest in all of our community folks first.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I say that is because there are still people that are out there that are struggling. Yeah. And I you got to think about it. I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery 3 years. Majority of my friends are still out there. I lost a friend 2 months ago to overdose.
I'm sorry.
His twin brother's still out there.
Is that right?
And the day before he overdosed, he had an appointment the next day to go to get housed. Yeah. Been waiting for 2 years. Yeah. And I'm seeing all these new buildings come up, but not an investment in our impacted folks that grew up here in this very space.
Yeah.
So I think it's like we focus so much on criminalizing and shaming our impacted folks, but the investment is half-ass. Yeah. And that would be my magic wand without calling out any names or organizations or people. Well, that'll be a special episode.
That was very elegant. I know that one we're going to have to charge for. I think we'll get.
But it's that, and I think it's also. when we think about the safety of our trans community folks.
Yeah.
I think about that. I've been thinking about that a lot. And I got to get Jalen Scott on here, but there are just watching all the BS that comes out online and the shaming that our trans community and people are impacted with is scary.
Yeah. Well, the hate begets hate, you know, and it's funny. Again, I know I'm probably overly philosophical when I speak publicly, but I keep stressing that if you reject hate, you have to reject it categorically. It is absolutely possible to love people, you know, and that does not mean that I'm endorsing every perspective out there, but I do love people indiscriminately.
Who do you hate?
And I think, I know, seriously, I think something's wrong with my brain. I really do. I generally find people lovable or hilarious. Those are sort of my two buckets, and I'm sure that's some sort of defense mechanism. But it's interesting. I mean, even responding when I might find you hilarious.
Yeah.
But when I came into 911, it was interesting because there's still, you know, there was some of the dispatchers there expressed strong anti-police sentiment. And I was really clear about that you can't, you're dispatching these folks, you know, who are absolutely taking risks every day. If you hate them, you can't work here, right? But I remember after somebody exited, I had to really sit down with folks, and it was almost like an ethical debate, you know, this forum where people were saying, well, you know, basically it's not discriminatory to hate cops. And I was saying, yes, it is. Yes, it is. That, you know, that is a group of people that you're saying, I hate the people, right? So criticize the profession all day long. That's fine. Take whatever position you want. You can't hate people and then be equitable and inclusive as first responders. That's not a thing. And it was actually really interesting because I remember one person, I do like debate. It was kind of fun. They made a really interesting point, and they said, well, Amy, you can't say that a profession is an aspect of identity, like sexual orientation or race or these other things. And my quick counterpoint was, well, I'm a mom. That is core to my identity. That is how I think about myself. What is that then, right? And they were like, I don't think there was counterpoint after that. But again, the principle really matters to me. And I do think it's interesting. I mean, obviously, this is the hot topic in this country right now, is anti-Christian sentiment. Is that okay, right? Is this sentiment okay? Is this sentiment? And I'm saying if we are inclusive, we have to be inclusive. And it was interesting living in the Midwest because Kentucky, right? I would have expected it to be a very discriminatory environment. But what I found was that folks were like, you do your thing, I'll do mine. It was actually one of the more tolerant places I've ever lived because of that perspective. It was like, don't put your thing on me, right? Let me be me, but then you do your thing. It's fine.
Yeah. I love Kentucky.
Yeah.
Had a really nice ex from Kentucky.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. Then you can validate. Yeah. Shout outs. Shout outs.
A lot of shout outs today.
Yeah. But I mean, what would you say to that when you think of, again, I think you are one of the most, like your love and your heart, it's palpable. Every time I'm around you, I just, like if somebody says love, you're going to be the top of the list. So how do you think about that? How do you manage to apparently sort of embrace everyone and be indiscriminate?
I think I always say at the end of the show that I host on Converge, it's like walk with love.
Yeah.
I think that's what God put me on this earth to do is love on folks.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't speak much on my parents, but my parents are all in service. Like my grandmother who raised me was a foster home developer.
No kidding.
And she worked in church. She did work in church and she was also neighborhood watch. So it's like, wait a minute. Like I've always been of service. I was taught to be of service to people and just to try to show up as my most authentic self.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in the best space that I could be in, I want to be able to love on people so they'll never feel that they can't fit in or they're being silenced or they can't be heard.
Yeah.
It is really, really important for me to make sure that people feel loved.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. do you find that you're able to influence people? I just said this in a forum. I said, the reason I talk to everybody, especially people who may be the furthest from me, philosophically, I want to influence that person, right? I'm actually trying to prioritize folks that would not be naturally in my echo chamber, because I think that, again, once you're antagonistic, if you make someone feel bad or stupid or attacked, you've lost them. You're not going to teach them anything. You're not going to influence them. And I was really moved by the Love is Love movement. That was huge. It was wild to watch, like, overnight, somebody simplified the message. Yeah. And you can see public sentiment change, like, almost overnight across the country. But the message wasn't, you're terrible, you're a bigot, this is not constitutional. The message was, I love my person like you love your person.
Yeah. I think I just can't see myself. Whenever I'm in a room, I always look at the most quietest person in the room and I try to find them.
Yeah.
Main reason, because I know something's festering there, or maybe they're just they have an idea that they want to work on.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to public safety meetings.
Yeah.
You see, I'm at all of them.
Yeah, you
are.
No
matter North End.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the last one I went to was out there in Tacoma because I care, because I want to know what more can I do to be of service to this community.
Yeah.
If I'm just looking in one space, then it's not the job to me.
Yeah. How are you able to take care of yourself? Because I worry about, it's funny because you worry about me. Yeah. You're one of he's like my welfare check guy.
You know why I do that? Because I know that I'm probably going through it myself, right?
It takes one to know one.
Hey, I hope you're taking care of yourself. And then I'm on the phone with my therapist. I'm so stressed out.
Exactly.
But I think that what is good, how I take care of myself is my community, my friends, my circle of people that fill that cup, that are there, that are supportive. I do have down times. Like this weekend, I'll be in a hotel, chilling with some friends.
Yeah.
Open mic. I love open mics. That's you're not dealing with any other BS, but just like listening to music and just chilling.
Yeah. Do you worry about relapse, or do you feel like I have arrived and this is who I am? And
I don't worry about relapse.
Yeah.
I have not worried about relapse since I got out of treatment.
Yeah.
I couldn't be more proud of myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't be, if there's one thing, take all the other stuff, take the community work, all of it out. My recovery is the best gift that I gave to myself.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I mean, it is the best gift. Have you ever heard
that message is so important?
Have you ever heard the story about the man who gave up? Neither has anyone else.
That's great.
It is really good. It is good. I mean, Eric and I often talk about how, when we are in recovery communities, especially people with hard-fought battles, right, where it was, decades, those are the most, that feels more like church to me than any church ever did. It really does. There is this, again, a palpable sense of joy. And I don't know if it's like new lease on life, or I think a lot of it's that you just have to be so honest. You can't come through without a lot of integrity, I think, and self-love, and hope. And I wish people understood that. I wish you could just bottle that, or I could that's why I always want folks at drug court graduation, because I really think collectively we do not understand that everyone can change. We don't. We think like some people can.
And
right?
It wasn't forced treatment. It is really like community.
I love your intervention story, right? Because it was your coworkers, right?
It was my coworkers. It was my friends. It was and really I think that even coming out of treatment, it was a challenge not to want to use. It's just that I spent time in a treatment center for those days, and I've been conditioned. And now I'm out of that. Yeah. Now what do I do? Like, I go to work and then I go to outpatient and then I just go to outpatient and do all of those things. But it wasn't the outpatient. Yeah. It was my people. Yeah. And it was my people and my community folks that actually helped me show up for myself.
Yeah. And were you really thoughtful about who you spent time with when you exited?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was hard.
Yeah.
Like I live right next door to a bar.
Yeah.
And all my friends used to yell at me when they're outside of the bar, like, hey, come outside. Right. But it was, and I said to myself when I was getting out of treatment, well, I'll just drink.
Yeah.
And then I didn't.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think that I just get a high with just being around my community folks.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Definitely, I think people recognize that you kind of feed off of people and you're just so energetic all of the time. But it's just really interesting, folks that we've talked to that have gone through rehab and are sober are some of the most stable, grounded, authentic people because you had to face yourself.
Everything.
You had to face, you had to look in that mirror, right? And be super honest to get to that place. And it's fascinating to, you're another example of somebody who, what is it? The We Do Recover movement, that's so important for people to understand. And certainly people that are in addiction now to know that, I can recover. I can, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because without that, it's hard to find purpose and all that. So, you're another shining example.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I love that you shared how you were embraced, right? When the shame associated with this is actually who I am right now and what I'm doing and this is what I need. And I hear from people like that is terrifying. And there was one little speech I gave where I was talking about, really analyzing call data, right? What these 911 calls were and realizing it's not what I thought. It's like, sometimes it's this, act of God type of thing, or sometimes it is just a medical event. But most of the calls to me, it just looks like deep sorrow, and that's how Harriet describes it. And then the behaviors that accompany that sorrow. Then I learned that people will call just because they don't think anybody else is going to answer, but we will. And so, I think we'll just keep repeating that message.
I had a situation right before treatment. And I used to have my issues with law enforcement, especially during the 2020.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying during 2020 is like I had friends that were law enforcement and they would say certain things online or whatever, but I was going through my relapse phase and I called an officer.
Yeah.
And that officer, mind you, I'm chair BLM, and we just came up with statements coming at them, but I had relapsed, and I called that officer, and that officer sent someone to my house just to check up on me.
Oh, gosh.
And I mean, I could have been like, it could have been all over, like the news and all of that, but I'll never forget that officer holding space for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, even during that time, I still needed, there was always a relationship and a conversation that I was always having with law enforcement, good, bad, or indifferent. But in that very vulnerable moment, I will never forget that officer for holding space for me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing
that.
That's great.
Yeah, because I feel like, of all professions, that's the profession where the bad stories make the news. Those are the headlines. And the daily work, that's why I do try to talk about it, because uniquely as someone outside that department, I get to observe it all of the time. And I have been so inspired by a lot of what I see, by the compassion. And again, I think there's a more sophisticated understanding that, we are interventionists. That is supposed to be the job. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the reform that is needed, that people understand, sometimes there is an enforcement action, but it's so this person doesn't die on the street, right? It's, and I do know a lot of people at this point who say that cop saved my life. Mm-hmm. Or recently, again, we've got multiple teams, we've got clinical teams that can go out. But sometimes, I've got it in the notes, basically in records management, that this person loves officer so-and-so, and he's the one who holds the strongest relationship. And that's the person who can get the person stabilized.
I think it's much like the story about the guy that gave up. Nobody knows about that. There's also so many stories.
You're so quotable.
Every single day, cops are out doing good stuff. And Unfortunately, most often the only time that they're mentioned is, when something goes wrong, there's mistakes made and people do something wrong, and then that's the headline. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for this. This was it was so good to talk to you.
No,
I could hold you here for hours.
I appreciate y'all both. I think that as we, I just want to give y'all this, right? Especially you. God makes your waters high because your enemies cannot swim. You have been doing some real trailblazing things that are in this community, and people see it. And the real ones know, and they're holding you up.
Thank you.
So just keep it. And even having these conversations on this podcast is great to finally take my wig off, honey, and just talk to you about everything. And of course, it's also beautiful just to see the both of you do this, because it's like, hey, when two worlds, y'all are one world, but when two worlds collide in the space of and how you hold space for each other. I mean,
well, that's the kind of the premise of this whole deal is that we think that people can have different perspectives and different ideas and find common ground, and that's why there's this podcast, because we want to. We do want to hold that
people
up.
were fascinated. I know, again, I think I was branded, very far left academic. I was just known for certain things. And I would get the question all the time, like, what do you talk about? And I was like, everything. It's like people more... the more different generally, the more interesting to me, right? I don't.
Hey, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for the affirmation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't really have a feedback loop generally.
I'm just all right. That's why I had to give it to you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, once again, we've been bombarded, but I also think we've been dampered.
Never heard that. I might use that as a comedy routine.
Yeah. Thanks.
The Bombardened podcast is a Barden Squared production. Executive producers are Eric Barden and Amy Barden, and video and audio production of the Bombardened podcast is by Thread Theory Creative.